Hey there, and welcome to this webinar on how to build a strategic consulting business model. A couple of minutes before we kick off. So, as usual, we're waiting for the onrush of people to come in. So, if you're here, nice and early, great to see you. People start to come in. So, just say hello in chat. Tell me that you can hear me. Tell me that you should be able to see my screen by now, and just generally let me know that you're alive. And then once I see somebody in the chat say something, then we can kick off. So, can you see me? Can you hear me? Okay, so how are we getting on out there? So, Jan, hi. At least there's someone there listening. Erin, hi. Great to hear from you. Great to, I'm assuming because you're all saying hi, that my audio is live and kicking. So, I like to be punctual. We're on that time, so I'm going to kick off and start. So, the way my webinar platform runs is you can see my screen. I'm going to run over to my webinar slides and run through the presentation, the stuff that we've got prepared. While I'm doing that, I can't see the questions. At my age, I need to be able to look at it in a bit more detail than try and run small windows. So what we're going to happen is I'm going to ask a series of questions throughout the presentation. So there's some engagement, and that will also give me a chance to come back and look at some of the answers. So we can take some natural breathers. So let's get cracking. And you'll see why I've got it set up like this with the slides down the side. It's not so I can look at the beauty of my slides at any particular time. It's so there's an element of interaction and drawing on the slides, so I need to keep it this way. So welcome to the webinar today on how to build a strategic consulting business model. So most of you know me because you've come from my Facebook group and or my presence on LinkedIn. But my big promise to you today is I'm going to give you pure actionable content that isn't necessarily a how-to, but it's more strategic around how you build your entire consulting business model to enable you to create the revenue or the end goal that you wish to create. Me, if you don't know too much about me, that's me. The picture's a little bit old now. That little Bonnie boy that's a little baby is now 2. In terms of how long this webinar is going to last, I would say it's the first time I've done this content. I would say about 50 minutes and then Q&A. But that little guy who's now 2 is going to come bounding back in at some stage, and I have to be finished for when that is. Otherwise, he's going to trash the place. But that's me. I've got the grey hairs of my little family, and also many, many years selling consultancy and software and technology. I've built sales systems for some of the world's largest technology companies, EMC, Epicor, some of the what I call the new corporates, companies like New Voice Media, gone from nothing to sort of 500 million in the space of a couple of years. And in 2018, I transitioned to purely working for consulting companies. Prior to that, I was trying to work with consulting companies and technology companies. And the communication flow of my messages out to the market just wasn't helping me. And I would show you guys how to focus in on one market. And I needed to eat my own dog food. And I loved working with the consulting clients that I had. And the results that I got for them were reasonably large in a reasonably short space of time. So a little bit about me. Don't want to labor the point because I want to find out a little bit about you. So in the chat box, let me know how long you have been consulting. So just let me know so I can get a feel for who we've got with us. I'm going to keep everything absolutely confidential. I'm not going to share your names or anything. And in fact, I may not even read them out, if you like, but I just want to get a feel for who we've got and what's going on with the people that are attending my webinar. So let me know, how long have you been in consulting? So 3, 2, 1 on that one. Fantastic, because I want you to start thinking about your journey and what you've been doing. So tell me a little bit about how much does a typical client pay you? So in the type of consulting that you do, how much does a typical client pay you? Okay, so, and while you're thinking about that, I'm just looking back. So I'm just launching my consulting business, 20 years, 2 years. So we've got a huge range of people coming in, 18 years as a contractor, but none as a pure consultant. So thank you very much for opening up about that. So how much does a typical client pay you? And here's the tough one for many. So look, on a scale, a ranking scale, where is the value? How do you value and create value in the work that you do as a consultant, or intend to do if you're just starting out? And what I mean by that is, if you charge a straight day rate, put a 1 in the chat box. So if all your work is pure day rate, put a 1 in the chat box. If everything is value based, and what I mean by that is you have no day rates. You do not work on a day rate model. You work out you can create £100,000 or $100,000 worth of value for the company, and you set your fee according to that. Put a 10. And then somewhere in between, we have, say, a 5, which is you price on a mixture of time and materials, and a piece of equation that is only known to you about how you determine your value. So where are you on this equation? So 1 is straight day rate, 10 is pure value based, and 5 somewhere in the middle. So we've got a lot of 1s. So I see as again, just launching. Okay, cool. So you're looking at these things. These are priority for you at the moment. Lots of 1s. So lots of people who are operating in that pure day rate zone. Well, stick around because you're going to learn some significant ideas and shifts about how you can transition out of that day rate zone. So here's the tough one. What's your current monthly income? Feel free to put it in the comments. I'm not going to share it with anybody, but at least write it down. If you've got a pen and a piece of paper in front of you, write down the reality of where you are. So what's your current monthly income? Okay, cool. So the answers are coming in. I'm on a little bit of a time lag, so it just takes a little bit of a while to update for me. So that's perfect. So now you've put down your current monthly income. I want you to start thinking about where you want to be with the model that you're in, and where's your gap? What is it that you want to achieve in your consulting business? And what is your gap, whether that's per month or per year? And that could be a gap in terms of revenue. Obviously, that's the way most people think about it. It could also be a gap in terms of profitability. It could also be a gap in terms of cash, or it also could be a gap in terms of time and freedom. Because obviously, if you're on a pure day rate model, and this will appeal to many of you, you're driven by working more and more of the same process. So what is your gap? Where are you missing out in your consulting business? Okay, so I just had a look. My screen seemed to disappear for a moment, but it's back. It doesn't like me messing around with it. Okay, cool. So I'm just looking at the answers. So, okay, so lots of varying different answers there. So perfect. So that's where your gap is. So let me introduce you as well. So where are you focused right now? I have to say, I may be different to a lot of the stuff that you're seeing on LinkedIn and Facebook at the moment about, it kills me when people are putting stuff out there and not making the correct attribution. And it makes, I think, the industry bad. There's too many self-proclaimed experts at the moment with their models and, stick a TM after the name and they're an instant expert. So this is something that I love from a consultant called Chuck Blakeman. And it's making money is killing your business. And what it's doing is asking you to identify where you spend the majority of focus in your business. And it's something that I get my clients to look at in most of the programs that I work with my clients. So here's what I find, particularly with my consulting clients. And that is they spend all of their time in this sector here. So they are service focused, i.e., everything is about their process, their consultology. Type into the chat box. Do you believe that you are service focused, market focused, systems focused, or any of the others? And what Chuck Blakeman says, and I absolutely concur, and it's something that I've been working on with my clients for many, many years, is the reality is you should be positioning yourself as the business owner. And the way that you get that is to have a good blend of the market focus. And I'm going to show you exactly how you can do that in this webinar. So stick around to the webinar. The content I'm going to show you is how to position yourself as a market into the marketplace, how to create a systems focus in your business, certainly your business model and your business strategy, and ultimately how to transition from a day rate based service focused consultant into a business owner that got that model taken care of. So put in the chat box where you are in terms of that methodology. Okay, so I'm just looking at the chat and just trying to make sure that I've caught up. Okay, Stuart, yes, a replay will be available for attendees. So I'm just looking at, I think there's a little bit of a time lag, so just catching up with some of the past comments. Okay, cool. So I'm going to crack on. So put in your the tick box there, the questioning box. Do you believe yourself to be market focused, systems focused, or service focused? Perfect. So where's the focus that you could be in your business? So I'm going to give away the crown jewels right up front, if you like. So here is the strategic consultant model. So this is the model that I discussed, the promise of the whole webinar. So this is the model that I work with all my one-to-one consulting clients, and I've brought this down now into one of the key programs that I offer. So I work with my clients on a red, amber, green when we look at these. So let's have a look. So we've got 3 core areas of creating your strategic consulting business model. So first of all, create. So within create, we've got the value model and method, and we're going to cover that in detail on the webinar today. Alongside the creation of your value model and method, you also need to create your expertise and positioning. And I'm going to demonstrate to you why most people are experts, but they have little expertise. You say, how do you do that? But it's something that I identify in many, many consultants. I'm going to show you that when I move into that content area. I'm also going to show you how, by very simply creating 1 or 2 business models, you can create instant leverage in your business. And then acquire. So this program that this is taken from is grown out of a smaller program called How to Get Your Next 5 Consulting Clients. So after speaking to over 200 consultants in the space of a couple of weeks, months rather, 6 to 7 weeks, I find that most consultants are struggling to win new business. Acquiring clients is the top of their mind. So there's 3 key areas. Your perfect offer. So what is the perfect offer? And when put together with the perfect prospect that you're looking to target, and the perfect contact mechanism, that gives us acquire. Get all of those three right, and you have built the foundation of fantastic strategic consulting model. And then convert. So convert, we start off with building your message. And here's a dirty one in many people's minds, and I will challenge you on that, and that is the perfect pitch. So most people will think pitch is, selling, and it's not very nice. It's not something that we do as consultants. But, so let me just have a look. So I'm just going back to some of the comments to have a look. Yeah, so we've caught up, nice. Okay, cool. So just going back to check the comments. Look, so most people say, look, pitching is not nice. I don't want to be a pitching salesperson. However, I'm going to show you a model of where people are in their state of awareness and desire for your services in a couple of minutes. I'm going to show you that you absolutely need a pitch to pitch your services into the marketplace. And if you do not, you are complicating the process for yourself. And then we have consult flow. So this is a consultative model. Most people are under the naive understanding that to be a consultant, you need a consultative sales model. But I push back against that in many instances, because the days of people not knowing much about your marketplace and you knowing more about your marketplace than your prospects is gone. That ability to walk into a meeting and ask questions for an hour when you've got very little rapport or credibility, and then to sell a project and not really giving them much detail about what they're going to get, those days really have gone. However, you need to work between the perfect pitch and a consult flow to determine what is the best process. I'm going to show you exactly how to do that. And once you get all of those 9 things working in tandem, you get the 3 things that most consultants that I speak to are looking for. So they're looking for freedom. So freedom to choose the clients that they're looking to work with, freedom to take time off, freedom to create their own working models, validation that they're doing the right thing, validation that they made the right choice by stepping out of employment and creating their own business, and also profit. The profit is absolutely the key one. And when you get all of those correct, this one here, I think, is the missing ingredient for many, many consultants, and that is cash. And I'm going to show you exactly how you can cash flow a strategic consulting business model. Okay, Pete, that's enough. You say, I want to get on and I want to hear it. So the first one that we're going to look at, we're going to look at a couple of components. There's 9. There's no chance we're going to do it in the time that we have allotted. So we're going to look at the value model. So the value model. If you don't get the value model right, you're going to run into a number of problems. First problem that you're going to run into, if my slides ever catch up, come on. Hey, who loves tech? So look, if you don't create a value-based business model, and I don't mean value as in selling it in terms of value-based projects instead of day rates, I mean value for yourself as much as the client, you're going to get caught in the trap of redesigning your proposition every single time. And if you're charging day rates, that's an even worse disaster for you, because you forget the amount of time that it takes. You're charging a client for 2 days, yet it takes you 2 days to design it, 2 days to finish the report, 2 days on site. It's 5 days and you charge for 2 days. And if you're redesigning your proposition every single time, there is no way you can scale or get any leverage. And the model I'm going to show you will help you completely change that business model. So if you do not have a value-based business model, then you will be forever consigned to charging day rates, because you have nothing else to offer than working as an outsourced employee and on day rates. And in fact, many of the consultants that I speak to actually feel that they've left corporate world, they've gone out in the consulting world, and they've found out that it's not everything it's cracked up to be. And in fact, they feel like a gun for hire or an outsourced employee, given all the bad consulting work that the employees won't do. If you don't have a business model, you're going to be forever charging day rates. So if you do not design that consulting business model, you're never going to acquire expertise. And this is one of the ones that might shock you. I speak to many, many experts on a monthly basis, but very few of them have expertise that is rounded. And what I mean by that, they may be some of the world's best project management consultants. They may be some of the world's best mergers and acquisitions consultants. However, they have no rounded expertise of their industries that they're targeting, but the problems that are faced by their prospects and their potential clients, because they're swapping and changing. I spoke to someone the other day who's, since starting out a new consulting business, had 3 clients, all through referrals. Everyone was completely different, and he saw no chance of that changing doing what he was doing. And he had no rounded expertise. He couldn't articulate why someone bought them, bought his services. He couldn't articulate the results that he could bring. So he's not building that that rounded expertise that will help him be positioned as the go-to authority in his marketplace. And one of the worst ones for many consultants is it's impossible to cash flow. A lot of the people think it's great to be selling large consulting deals. But if you're a smaller consultant, it's not the holy grail to be selling 250K, $500,000 consulting deals. But even if you're looking at 70,000, 50 to 70,000 tends to be an average or a typical number that many consultants I speak to are aiming for. But it's a challenge to cash flow that, because they generally take 3 months, 6 months, 8 months, and you're potentially struggling every month, waiting for this big project to come on. You can't press the pedal on initiatives about spending because everything is maybe 3 months off, I'll win this deal, or 6 months off. So I'm going to show you the model, how you can eradicate that fear forever. And also, you have the impossibility of cash flowing. And this is one that I come across a lot. And that's absolutely resenting your clients and falling out of love with your business and the clients that you serve. So what I'd like you to do is, in the chat box, just let me know if any of those have rung true for you. Is it the fact that you're stuck in day rates? Is it the fact that you're not building rounded expertise? Is it the fact that you're struggling to cash flow the business and the expansion? Put that in the chat box. Look, so the model I'm going to show you, I believe there's many people that I look to as kind of mentors, actually not Richard Branson so much, but one of his great sayings is complexity is your enemy. Any fool can make something complicated, but it's hard to make something simple. Another person I do look at as a mentor is a guy called Dan Sullivan, and his phrase is, to scale, we must simplify. So here is the value-based business model. So most people are looking to create, if we look here, this type of consulting package here, say, let's call it 30K, so £30,000. And that's their front end offer. And for many people, it's a diagnostic, i.e., traditional model have to come in and do a whole lot of work to identify what the challenges are in your business and what's broken. So just let me know in the chat box if that's something that is akin to the model that you run or are looking to run. But with this type of problem, so this type of business model, the problems that they face are all the ones I've said. It's hard to cash flow sometimes. 30K, it's hard to get a yes to. In a lot of businesses, unless you're dealing with the managing director, the CEO of an owner-operated business, that can push the button themselves. If you're dealing with a bigger business, there's multiple people need to be involved in this process. So one of the ways that you can overcome that is by the inclusion of a front-end offer. And that could typically be in the region of 5 to 10. And you could almost productize that. So there's a whole new genre coming up that you may be aware of that operates a model called a productized consulting model. And they moved over from the software world, SaaS, and are moving into consultants and seeing that as an easier way to make money than the software business. But what this allows you to do is create a front-end opportunity, an engagement that is potentially productized, i.e. you can articulate what pain it solves and what the end results are going to be. Sometimes called a foot in the door strategy, but it's a little bit more strategic than that. However, if you design it correctly, and this is what most people don't do, even if they have one, you can strategically structure it that it is a natural progression to take your next phase. So this is phase 1 and this is phase 2. And what I mean by that is if your 30,000 project involves multiple departments and you need multiple heads of departments or VPs or directors, you could potentially and on purpose design that front end so it engages, whether it be in a training or an analysis or a one-to-one interview, all of the heads that you would need to engage to sell your bigger consulting project. Key thing about this as well is if you could focus it on one major pain, that a no-brainer. It's relative to sell and networking in. So again, my clients who think of that, and then there's also a third, so I call it an anchor, which may be 80. It depends what people are and what is bringing into a business. So I've got one client where this offer that we created was 50K. Foot in the door strategy is 50K because they were trying to close business at 500K at the back. And another client that we had massive success getting them meetings with anyone they wanted, but their first project was 500K and it involved global divisions across every department to do a diagnostic session. So, that's a hard sell, 500K to do a diagnostic that involved every area of the business. Quite frankly, no matter how many meetings we were getting in, they were struggling to sell that. So that is a value-based model. And I'm going to show you exactly what that can do for you and how you can create that. But think about that. How could you create that in your business? What would you be comfortable with creating? And think about this concept of the productized first meeting. Because if you do that, you can then start to examine your numbers a little bit better. So look, if we look at what I call here the entry-level proposition, say if you're comfortable with 5,000, so 5, and that's a number that a lot of the consultants I speak to are comfortable with, especially when they're transitioning from day rate work. So if you win 20 of those in a year, that's 100K. Yeah. If you work that out, you say you work 10 months per year, you need to close 2 of those or run 2 of those a month, and that gives you 10. And the fantastic thing about that is now you have an opportunity to cash flow your business. I spoke to a client just before this webinar on a catch-up call for some work that we did probably 60 days ago. And we redesigned his business model a little bit, and actually it involved this front-end entry model. But the entry model was also redesigned to even bring in the ability to work with some smaller clients that before they were turning away. And he's closed 2 of these projects. In fact, I think they're £6,500, £7,000 in a short space of time. Now, they may not move into the next phase. They may be too small a business. But what they've done is given him a kitty of X £1,000s to now reinvest into marketing, to reinvest into paid advertising, reinvest into a salesperson. Whereas if you're chasing that big shiny object all the time, it's very difficult to cash flow your business. But also, if you get that, I can show you exactly how you get there. We can reverse engineer your numbers. So first of all so how many people do you need to present to? So this is where we look at either the consult flow model or the perfect pitch. So say your close rate is 1 in 4. So i.e. every person you present to, yes, 25%. But front end productize offering, i.e. it clearly identifies a pain point and clearly brings about a solution, 25% close rate should be achievable for most consultants, even if you've never had any sales training before. So to get your 2 front-end offers a month, you need to present to 80 people a year. There's the numbers, 80 people a year. If you build in a stage before that, where instead of doing a pitch or a consultative sales meeting face-to-face on the phone, you build in a short telephone call. This is a model that most of the large tech companies use. We call it a fit call or a scoping call. 10 minutes could be done by you or someone else. Typically, say 1 in 3 people or even 2 to 3 people pass that stage. It might be they're too big, they're too small, they don't have the budget, they're not in the right industry, they're not faced by the same challenges. So we now know in a year we need to create 240 of those questions, those short conversations. And say via our lead generation mechanisms, we convert 1 to 10 of the people we reach out to into a call. Whether we're using free, i.e. email, calling, partnership, word of mouth, whatever the free model is, you can use paid or partnerships for as strong as, or whatever the tactic, because now we're not looking at the tactics where most people are trying to show the right way to do things. It's all about, you've got to be on LinkedIn. Here, I'm a LinkedIn expert. I'm going to show you this. But the reality is, it doesn't matter unless you have your model tied in correctly. So now what we need to do is we need to engage 2,400 people at those relatively conservative numbers. If you have a market of 2,400 potential companies, you can get 240 of them on a short telephone call. 80 of them to present your front-end productized offer will give you 20 clients. 5K is 100K a year, 10K a month to cash flow the business. Plus, as I was talking to my client earlier, saying, but the beauty of what we've just done and created, in a year, I get a minimum of 20. His number slightly bigger, but case studies and testimonials, even if they never become a bigger client, we're learning more. The cash flowing my people. But then what we look at is I would expect 1 in 4 of those to become an expansion client. So of the 20, 5 would be an expansion client at, say, let's keep the numbers nice and small because I don't want to think that I'm being unrealistic, but I've seen this go huge. So 5 times 20 is another 100K. Okay, so we're now at 200K, and just say 1 out of those 5, but it doesn't have to be out of those 5 because it could actually be out of the 20 as well. You could have, 1 person, but I actually want to move right on in to your bigger project, which could be, let's keep the numbers. And so this gives you now 260K. can dial your numbers in with some relatively scientific accuracy. And not only that, I'm going to show you how you can scale and move that model, move the dials on that model as well. So, looking on that model, what I want you to do is type into the chat box, how would that impact your business? If you could create a productized front-end offer, perfect. If you could create that productized front-end offer, if you could dial in your numbers like that, how would that impact your business? What type of revenues do you think you could create, and what type of freedom you could create if you dialed that in correctly? Type that in the chat box for me. Let me have a look and see whether you think that's feasible for you, because a lot of this is mindset. And I truly believe that for a lot of the concepts that I've just shown you, it's a decision. Once you make that decision, then you will make it happen. You will put a plan into place to make it happen. If you feel like you're stuck as a gun for hire on a low day rate, £1,000 a day seems to be the magical number for most of the clients I speak to, consulting clients. Which is a pretty nice income if you're working 20 days a month, but most don't. Most don't have the ability or the time then to create any alternative, and most can be dropped, a drop of a hat, and all of a sudden the income completely dies up. But it is a decision. But there's going to be some blockages around you making that decision. And it's the baggage and the beliefs that you have that are holding you back. So one is your belief that the consulting model is predicated and built on day rates, hourly rates and day rates. And I can categorically tell you now, it's not. If you can understand the pain points or the desired outcome of your marketplace more than the marketplace can articulate it themselves, then you can create value-based products, value for you and value for your clients. And I call it the domino effect. So it's a knock-on effect. So if you are thinking in terms of day rates, you are now restricting your marketplace. And that's what many people do. False targeting. I want to charge £1,000 a day and I want to work 14 days per month. And because of that, I can only travel an hour and a half. So, I can only work with companies with an hour and a half of where I live. Maybe the occasional trip down to London. So what about your niche? No, I'm a generalist. But why is that? Because I have to target the right companies. I can't narrow it down by picking a niche or picking a problem that I solve, because I've got this knock-on domino effect. But if you let go of this day rate mentality, the whole world opens up to you. I don't know if you've noticed, but there's technology out there. You can service clients all over the world. If your expertise, your rounded expertise is strong and good, and you're seen as the value prize, consulting companies will fly you to the States, to Hong Kong, to China, to Abu Dhabi, wherever it is that they go, to pay you. And not just, well, it's going to be £1,000 a day, that's, the travel. It will pay you handsomely for the work that you do. So there's a domino effect based on some illogical thinking. Break out of those. And they're going to hold you stuck. And sometimes I think I'm more passionate about doing this for my clients than they are themselves. And your desire for variety, and this is the one that gets me every time. I'm a consultant. I want to work with different clients every day. I love problem solving. I want to get in. But that belief is keeping you stuck. The only way you can create freedom, create more profit and more better. I'm showing my Cardiff link up there. More better than profit is cash. You cannot afford to be a variety merchant in today's business world. You have to be a specialist in what you do. You cannot redesign your process for every single client. Get variety in the, the initiatives around how you bring results to the same type of client if you have to be driven by variety. Or, variety on how you're going to spend the cash that you're earning for your family, not by how much time you're redesigning everything every single time. And the consultant's curse, I call it, which is navel gazing. You'd be amazing amount of consultants I speak to, that we talk to, and they truly believe that I can help them. They truly believe that they're stuck and that I can get them to a place, or some other person can, but they just can't make a decision because they're cursed by being educationalists, analytics, overly analytical, always looking for the right solution without just getting out of their own way and making a decision. And it's the consultant's curse. If you can get your way through those beliefs, you can create the model that I've shown you. And I will give you these slides. So anyone that's turned up and stays with me to the end, I'll give you these slides so you can work these models. Okay, so the next one is one of the 9 is the perfect prospect. If you've got the perfect model, that value creating model, surely it makes sense to target the perfect prospect. Seems right to me. But the problem if you don't is you're always going to be high activity, low results, always redesigning your prospecting activity, not being able to articulate the world of your prospect better than they can do it themselves. So your relevancy is always going to be low. So let me show you a model that most consultants live with. And it's a model called the service-focused approach. So this is where most consultants start. And I know a number of you said you're just starting out, so don't fall into this trap. So the thought process goes like this. Number 1, who am I? Feel free to write these down when you get the slides, run through this model. So who am I? And then what do I know? First thing is, who do I know? And that's how most consultants start, and generally creates 12 months worth of revenue, 12 to 18 months worth of revenue. Who do I know? But after a while, that falls off, and then they're stuck. And then, who do I know? Who wants what I know? This is who I am. This is what I am. I'm a quality assurance consultant. I'm a HR consultant. I'm a leadership consultant. Who wants what I know? And that's about as far as most consultants get. So stage 4, and then it's out to the market. I try to educate service-focused approach consultants in a layer they can add on top of this, that who needs what I know, but doesn't know it. And we do this by creating opportunities around things like trigger events. For example, if you're a merger and acquisitions consultant, and you know that when a company acquires 3 or more businesses in a short space of time, the value of those companies, because there's issues of amalgamating so many companies, devaluates by a significant chunk, then you know that. And you can take that to those companies if you can identify them and tell them what they don't know. They need it, but they don't yet know it. So there's a level of sophistication. But this is where most consultants operate, in this service-focused approach. I challenge you to transition away from that. Be market-focused as part of your overall business owner mix. So start off with, who is out there? Form a hypothesis around who is out there. What is it that they're looking for? What do they need? So then stage 2, who needs a solution but doesn't know it? It's a great market opportunity if you can approach people who are not actively seeking because they don't know it and show them that they immediately need a solution. But most consultants don't even need that stage 2. They can go 1 to 3. Who is out there? What does the market want? Lead by the market. What is it that they're looking for? What do they want? Don't create a hard process for yourself if there is an easy route. If you are a multi-million-pound consulting company, then speak to me and we can do things differently. But if you're a 1, 2, 10, 20 person consulting company, do not overcomplicate the process. Don't make it hard for yourself. So what does the market want and how can I reach them? And then what do I know or what can I build for those companies? And the first starting point is what's called the BAP, the big ass problem. So you're going to get this as part of the slides. I'm going to make sure everyone that attended gets the slide. We're not going to run through this because I do this with my clients, but you will have this. But it's the starting point to understand what is really going on in the marketplace. And I will tell you now, 9 out of 10 consultants that I speak to really, really struggle here. Even consultants that you would look up to as global experts, because they've managed projects in the billions range and they've worked on projects in the billions range and teams of 50, 100, 300 people. But they're so far withdrawn from the business initiatives that started off and kickstarted those projects in the first place. And once I work with clients around the big ass problem, we then map out what we call the pain to glory exercise. So where are they stuck now? So the pain. So type in the chat box if you know the immediate pain that your clients are stuck in. So if you know that initial pain point that your clients are stuck in, type it in and let us have a look. But what we're looking to do is, what's the pain point? What's the glory? So with my clients, just to show you when you get this, we put the pain in here, in this box under milestone. We put the glory. What's their desired end result? What's the before? What's the after? And then there are stages along the way. So it could be 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5. You really shouldn't be looking at more than 5 stages. What are the key milestones that need to take them from where they are to the desired glory, the end state? And you have to map those out. And get this straight, not every one of those are going to be you. But you can see where you fit into the world of the solution. And then each milestone is going to have an outcome. So identify the end result, the outcome of that phase. And if you focused on that phase, are there any quick wins that you could bring about? So here's the pain. Here's a number of steps that they need to take to move them towards that pain, the goal, end glory. Could you then focus in on one of those milestones? And ideally, one that is high relevance for your prospect, one that has large outcomes. So what we do is we go through and so we rank with clients. When I do this, we kind of rank these in a scale of, okay, so with this one, so say we've mapped out the phases. Okay, so my tech is on a bit of a slowdown today. So what we do is we color code these via, I try to do most things by a red, green, and amber. So we color code these out based on what's the most likely attractive to us, based on importance to the client, potential for high revenue, and potential for quick wins. And you can start to see how we can map out that front end offer. This is just one that I've done in my own business. So example, a solo consultant. So here's a number of different pains, if you like. Don't have predictable deal flow, inconsistent clients, peaks and troughs in income, feel like they're begging if they're reliant on referrals, and they just don't know where to start. So they just don't know that first step. So here's the steps. So I'll show you exactly how to build a small list, how to contact them. So those are the steps. And that created a marketing and a leverage message for me. And when you start thinking like that, some great things can happen. So a client of mine, Simon, was targeting pretty much every pharmaceutical with the general, I'm a HR person. But when we started looking at that type of messaging, it became clear that he was an expert at building high-performing teams. And not only that, when we started looking at his messaging, the reason the companies needed high-performing teams was because they were launching new products and they had to bring disparate people in from all over the world. And if they didn't have a high-performing team, the revenue potential of those new product launches was significantly impacted. So with that new messaging and type targeting, we approached just over 1,000 people in 300 companies in Switzerland. Within 3 weeks, really, I had meetings and created 3 solid open deals with an estimated lifetime value each of about $500,000. And they were just opportunities at the time. So if you became more of a market-focused consultant, if you knew the big ask problem and you could map out the pain to glory of your ideal prospect, how would that impact your business? How much more business do you think you could win? Especially when you compound it with the fact that you have a front-end offer or a productized service that makes it easy for you to articulate what you do, that relates back to the big ask problem and your ideal client profile. And now can you see why you have to have a strategic model instead of working on tactics, buying the next LinkedIn expert course and all of that junk that, yes, is valuable. That's the stuff with my clients. I buy that to filter it for you. So you've got that. And let's talk about the perfect contact. So, I'm not going to talk about the email script or the LinkedIn messaging, but I want to show you some strategies that no one else is showing you. And that's defining your market approach. So let's say you have defined that 2,500 is an okay number of potential clients for you to be targeting, and your market has that capability. Statistics show markets differ depending on age of organization and service offering, but statistically, at any one time, there's about 10% of your marketplace looking for the solution that you offer. And about 30% that are open to a conversation, and 60% that really aren't going to respond very favorably. And that's okay. The 10% are heavily in the aware arena, and the 30% are in the middle of the spectrum, the 60% are in the unaware. So my superpower when I was working with technology companies was to engage that 60%. I could create meetings with CEOs of companies who responded to outbound approaches saying, I'm not interested. We have a vendor, we're under contract for 2 years. But you don't need that level of expertise or hard work. If your market is big enough, because you're not bound in by day rates and working with companies in a 2-hour drive from where you are and a generalist, so you can't charge high value-based fees, you can work all over the world. You can pinpoint organizations. So if you could do that, would there not be 10% of the market that you could make your life easy and just focus on those? It seems to make sense to me. And there are vagaries, there are different applications. So a client of mine a couple of years ago, so he's now listed as an angel investor because I helped him create enough value in the business to reach his end goal, which was to exit. So they were an energy consultant, and everyone was aware in their industry. Everyone had an energy consultant. Probably like 98% of the marketplace had an energy consultant. However, they were tied up for 2 years. So if we didn't go out to the market proactively and find out that information, only 10% were actively seeking to engage another consultant. And that was generally 3 months before their consulting project was up. We wanted to engage them 6 months before, 12 months before. So we went out there and we built so much value in the company because we were profiling about 1,000 companies every month by our lead generation efforts. And we would find out how much they spent on energy, who their existing provider is. So much value built that when they sold that company, they had the highest profitability, the lowest number of staff, and they had the highest profits to payout ratio when they were acquired at the same time as 2 other businesses. So you can create fantastic opportunities. Now I'm gonna miss this one because I'm just looking at time. First time I've done this, and I'll do another video which I will send as a follow-up to explain these models because I want to keep it reasonably tight. So the perfect pitch. So this is the reason why I put that perfect context. I've explained some of those principles. Is I want you to have a look at this. It doesn't hurt if you have a simple to articulate solution, or to productize your diagnostic session. Then it doesn't her to put it into a pitch. A lot of people don't understand what senior people in an organization want. So this was research done by IBM, Keenan Flagler Business School and Target Market Inc. And what it shows is executives want to understand the current landscape, current issues in their business and the marketplace. They want to establish their short and long-term business objectives, and they want to set strategy. In the technology companies I worked with, targeting high value, really high level CEOs, this is where we focused. And it was a lot of work to go into creating that. You had to create a lot of educational based material, and you could still transition that around. And most consulting companies can still do that relatively easy. However, if you have a high value, but lower hurdle front end offer, you can go into the middle ranks of larger organizations quite simply, but design your networking out into that business and do it in a way that's going to sell your next project. So you've now got two strings of how you can network your way into that business. And the way that we do it, so I've got a flow, if you like, that I work with clients who are creating a perfect pitch. Three things that we're looking to do is connect, convince, and collaborate. We want them to believe that they get it, they get it, we get it, and they get us. We want to convince them that this is possible, that this will work. We want them to believe that we can do it, and only if we work together. And the connection, we're looking at demonstrating a deep understanding of their world. If you are not a specialist, you cannot create that deep understanding of their world. And of course, we then start off with the dissatisfactions, the big ass problems. What's costing them time, money, energy? What is their end state? What is their desire? If you've done your pain to glory exercise, you can tie this into your pitch really, really well. And then we take them on what's called a dissatisfaction roller coaster. A good soap will lead you through a journey of an emotional roller coaster, and that should be the same as a pitch. Most consultants are quite analytical and educational based in their approach, so it's a straight line. Here's your problem, here's this, if they can articulate that, and here's what we've got to do. But sometimes you have to take people through this dissatisfaction roller coaster, make them feel the opportunities they're missing, make them feel the pain that they're in. And then, of course, what's the big breakthrough and what are the results, and what actions do they clearly need to take. So this is a model that I use with my clients to walk through the creation of a perfect pitch flow. And you'll get this as part of the slide handouts that I will send to you at the end of the webinar within a couple of hours, or maybe tomorrow. And there's one other thing that most people who, when they're presenting and pitching or talking from stage or even face-to-face sales conversations, they don't take into account existing beliefs. If you are creating a perfect pitch, you have to take into account existing beliefs in the marketplace and the individuals that you are targeting. Because if you don't come from a place of understanding their existing beliefs and seeking to change them, you will never create the revenue opportunities that you're looking for. And funny enough, consultants are far better equipped than most to do this. However, if you don't understand their problems and their existing positions, you're not going to do that. So here's just an example of how you could do that in a pitch. So belief change example. So a market that believes you can't get easy access to senior decision makers. So how I would change beliefs in a presentation is confirm their existing belief with old research. Show them that they're right to believe what they believe, because you can't call people an idiot for holding beliefs. However, seek to show them new research, a new paradigm, a new thought process, some new groundbreaking studies, whether it's by yourself or third parties, to show that it's no longer the case. And actually what the current reality is that third-party research shows senior execs want to be approached, they want to be educated and challenged, because no one is doing that in a massive mediocrity in the marketplace. And actually the same research shows that most people just don't contact senior executives. They don't believe they have the skill or the belief in their own credibility to do so. So senior execs are feeling lacking in the marketplace. And then I could show you tools of how you can make that easy, how to find someone's email address, how to delete, how to find out their behavioral style, how to research them, how to contact them, and show you how that could be very easy. So what's the conclusion if I'm going through this belief change process? That actually, it's relatively easy to do. It's going to take some work, but it's relatively easy to do. The senior executives, they want it, and therefore you can and should do it. So think about the beliefs of your marketplace and the prospects you're targeting. If you are a generalist consultant, you can never, ever dream of getting to this level of accuracy in your pitch. So how would that impact your business? Understanding your marketplace that well, how would that impact your business? Type it into the chat box and let me know. Okay, so there's 3 critical skills you're going to need if you're going to put all of this into practice. So this is the hard one for most people. Sales goes without saying that you don't need to be a sales expert. If you have built the model like I showed you or something similar, there's only a key number of places that you have to have sales skills. But the good thing is, if you are a consultant, you have all of the skills you need already. They just need honing and fine tuning. Most bad salespeople want the skill set that you've developed over the years as a consultant. So don't fear that. So you systemize so others can sell or deliver. So you look at this model, there's nothing in this model that as you scale, you cannot take advantage of. So what tends to happen is prospecting. Once you've got a system running and you know your numbers, you can outsource that. The chat, I must speak to every 4 out of 5 consultants I speak to offer me on a call, offer me a revenue share. So you bring in the business and close the business, or you bring in the business and I'll close, then they say, and we'll give you a percentage. But no one wants that because you haven't got a proven model. Even commission-based salespeople won't take that because you're asking them to come in and create the conversion-based model, which is, like 20, 30, 40, 50 grand's worth of consulting. You have to create that. They want to come into a working model. The scoping call, this 5-10 minute call here, you can outsource that to either an employee or a part-time person very easily. That's what a lot of my clients do. Very, very easy. In time, you can outsource the strategy call, whether it be a consultative call or the pitch. And this is following a model where you have strategy call followed by the pitch and consult flow. There's a couple of different options. Now, in time, if you productized your front-end offer, you can bring in associates or partners to do that for you because it's repetitive. It's running the same process every single time. So you could choose to only work on the expansion and only work on the anchor. And these are 30K, say, I can't remember what we said, 70K. And then this part is taken care of by other people for you in your team with scientific accuracy and scalability. I come from a world where scale is the answer to everything. But, that frightens consultants. Most consultants don't want scale as much. They want a life balance, more profit, more cash. And then the third thing is focus. That you'll never ever get there if you are a generalist consultant. You have to focus in on one niche and do away with those old school ideas of niche, of industry or company size. The world is a much more complex place now. A niche could be, as I've said, mergers and acquisitions. Organizations that acquire 2 or more companies in the space of a year could be a niche because they have a unique set of problems. Companies that are moving from ISO XYZ to ISO ABC. Manufacturing companies moving from a certain ISO, if you're quality, to another one. There's so many ways you can slice and dice and create an expert position for yourself. And if you don't believe me, listen to what's going on in the marketplace. Consultancy.co, UK, their latest studies of the high growth consulting companies. The leaders offering highly specialized services, no growth, lagging way behind. And not only that, the leaders in the high growth, so these are the consulting companies in Europe with the highest growth over the last year, highly specialized, leveraging technology. You can't leverage technology if you're creating the wheel for every client. You can't leverage software to manage their people, to create reports and dashboards, to do monitoring of certain services. It's a physical impossibility. So, don't take my word for it. Look at what's going out there. And the other thing, look at the largest consultant companies in the world buying digital marketing agencies, because they get this concept that you need to be productizing. There's a whole world of hungry entrepreneurs coming out of the SaaS world who are creating productized consulting businesses. And whereas you think you're targeting this elephant, this generalist proposition, there are people slowly eating away at your elephant. Multiple different companies, multiple different styles of delivery, eating the elephant that you look to eradicate one chunk at a time. And if you don't specialize, you are going to miss the boat. So what I want you to do is, in the chat box there is, look, out of those core skills, what's critical for you to implement right now? Sales, systemization, specialization. Which one is critical for you right now? So I don't know why you showed up and stuck around. There's only one part of the content that I feel I skimmed through a little, and I'll create a separate follow-up video on that. Like I say, it's the first time I've created this content for you, and it's very different to some of the content I've created before. It's much more strategic. It's something I've generally only ever shared with clients before. But yeah, I don't know why you showed up and stuck around. But here's the thing. Now you've seen those concepts, what would a great 12 months look like for you? Go back into the chat there and just type in what your 12 months could look like, even if you took a couple of these different models. What could greatness look like if you took one or two? Focus, an ascending model, identifying the big ass problems in your marketplace, mapping out the pain to glory, understanding the pitch methodology instead of trying to do everything as a consultative diagnostic when your clients don't want that. Type it into the box. Let me see where your thought process has changed in 60 minutes from when we started. Cool. And don't forget, we've only just touched on, a small number of the different component parts of the model. We haven't covered everything. There's 9 parts to the model when we look at acquire, convert, and create. And generally, when I get people to rank these, green is I've got this covered. I've implemented it, I've got it processed, and I've tested it and it's working. Most consultants that I speak to are, we've got red is that I've got absolutely none operating. Leverage is a red. Perfect offer is a red. Let's just say perfect prospect. I'll come back in. No perfect contact mechanism. Don't understand their messaging, how to message into the marketplace. Maybe they've got a relatively good consult flow. And as we kind of go through these, and I'm being probably optimistic or kind on a lot of consultants I speak to, so amber. So, what most consultants' business model is when I speak to them, so there's value model here, and the expertise and positioning. You can be an expert in my world, but you can have experts, you can be an expert with no expertise, and that's what I mean by that. When we map those out and kind of color code this, we tend to see a lot of reds and a lot of oranges. And don't forget, all of the insights, and I think hopefully you can see that there's been some amazing insights. We've really only looked at the value model and touched on it really. We've looked at the perfect prospects slightly, and we've done a little bit on the perfect contact methodology, and we've done a little bit on the perfect pitch, but not much. and look at the insights that I've shown you within those. Because look, ultimately, my goal for you as an end result of any watching this information, working with me, working with someone else, getting down and doing this yourself is that this is what you need over time. If you're going to create a business that you can, oh, where's that gone? So if you want to create a business that's going to create all those things, give you freedom, give you cash flow, give you higher profit, then what we need to be doing is, sorry, my slides are jumping around. Okay, while I wait for my technology to catch up, I'm going to do a little bit of ad lib. And so what's the thing that you've taken away the most from on this presentation so far? What are you getting the most value out of? Okay, cool. So we're back. So here's my goal for you. Whichever mechanism you use to get there, whether it's me or someone else or research and putting this in place, is design a business model that's got every single part of this green who's taken care of. Because it's only then that you build your strategic consulting business model. So what 3 projects would you like to get done in the next 90 days? Out of those 9 projects, what are the 3 that you want to get done in the next 90 days? Put them in the chat box. And then self-analyze. So what's the reality? It's going to get you from where you were. So those questions I asked at the beginning, on a rate of 1 to 10 from day rates, if you're on day rate, are you happy being on day rate? If you are, that's fine. But open your eyes to the possibilities that stand in front of you. And what would you like it to be? Would you like it to be at least time and materials as a concept, or project based, or retainers? What can you create, and what are the roadblocks that you're going to overcome? Because they're going to be in the way. There's no doubt. Those beliefs, those false beliefs, those skills that you need, they will be in the way. So I want you to, when you get these slide notes, is map that out. What are the 3 projects? And then how are you going to use those projects to take you from the reality, overcome the roadblocks, and what do the results look like that you want to achieve for yourself? Okay, so the pause was nothing to do with my delivery, it was the tech catching up. So one thing, I presented you with a lot of content in this one, probably more content than any webinar that I've ever done, and that's to show in the time. I haven't shown you a huge amount of case studies. I've got a lot of case studies in terms of consultants who created leverage. I think I've shown 2 in here. But would you like to be the next case study? Because sometimes I firmly believe that I want to create these things for my potential clients more than they want to create them for themselves. But if the ideas that I've shown you in this webinar have resonated with you, then I would love for you to become a case study that I can put into this webinar when I demonstrate it to